A lot of people like to tell me that I have eclectic tastes. That is, people can never tell if I'm going to like something or not. I know a lot of times in the past I've seen movies and everyone thinks I'm going to like them and I give it a bad review. Or there's stuff that nobody likes that I was the one person who did like. And I asked a friend of mine, could you maybe describe how you would define my tastes? And he said, your tastes are cringy, normy, and wholesome. And I just said, that's fair enough. That's probably close enough to reality. I do tend to like kind of more normy things compared to a lot of people in the sector. They can be a bit cringy at times, and they are very wholesome. That is, there's a lot of things like I can't watch anything that's harem or has like adultery portrayed positively or just a lot of other stuff like that. I can't watch that. So if something comes along and it's like a wholesome romance anime, and maybe this is the cringe aspect of my personality, but I'm probably going to give it a good review. Even if it's flawed, even if a lot of the other aspects of it are bad, I'm probably going to like it. And banished from Hero's Party, I decided to live a quiet life in the countryside is a very good example of that. There are a lot of issues with this, and overall, I'd say it wasn't the best, but I really enjoyed it because it kind of checked off all the boxes of stuff that I like in an anime story. And even if parts of it have issues, I really enjoyed this show. And if you happen to have similar taste to me, you probably will too. So let's take a step back and let's talk about Banished from Hero's Party. So I don't know what to call this genre. It's weird because it's like isekai in that they're in this world that's like a video game or something. So the premise of like modern isekai is they go into like a world that's basically a video game. But these are people who already live in a world that's a video game. Like Goblin Slayer is another example of this. I know there are a bunch of others, but they're escaping me at the moment. But yeah, they live in a world that's a video game, so it seems like isekai even though it's not isekai. You get what I mean? It's kind of weird. But it takes place in that kind of world. So our main character is Red, formerly known as Gideon, and he is a member of the hero's party who was tasked to save the world. Now, unlike everybody in this world has a divine blessing, which once again sounds like they just took something from ReZero or Shield Hero or something and just shoved it into this. And his divine blessing is Guide, which basically just kind of makes him a jack of all trades. He's very good at, well, being a guide, surviving in different environments, finding things, improvisation, medicine, negotiation, doing their finances. I guess in D&D terms, he would kind of be like a rogue, a very flexible, useful person to have around. But he gets kicked out of the hero's party by Ares, who's like an archsage or something, because the hero who's going to save the world is his little sister, and he's very close to his little sister. Not in that way, they have a wholesome family relationship. There's no hints of any kind of incest in this show. And he basically tells Red, look, you're just kind of a normie. Um, True, you're a knight, you're a really good fighter, and you're really useful, but you just don't measure up to all this other stuff, so you just gotta go. You gotta go because you're holding us back and you're gonna lead to your sister getting killed. So he just is like, okay, fine, I'm just gonna leave. So he decides to leave and he says, you know what, I'm done with this whole hero thing. I'm just gonna go to like the nicest, most peaceful part of the world, away from the Demon King's army, and I'm just gonna open up an apothecary shop and live a quiet life. And it's funny because I normally hate this trope. I normally hate, like, I see this as a betrayal of kind of the hero's journey, where like they leave the shitty town they live in, and then they go to on this big adventure and change the world, and then they just go back to the shitty town and nothing's really changed. and they kind of just throw aside everything they learned and they go back to kind of their boring lives. And it kind of seems like a bit of a betrayal of it. But in this case, it actually works. It probably helps that, I mean, he's the main character of the anime, but he's not like the hero per se. I don't think his background was particularly affluent, but I could be wrong. I think part of it is also he's just kind of leaving in the middle of it. Like the campaign's over, the world doesn't need to be rebuilt yet. Basically, part of it is I think he got tired of the seemingly endless war against the Demon King and kind of thought that things would never actually end. So, like he said, he just went to like this like idyllic small country and lives nearby a town, and he has all his skills that he learned when he was an adventurer. So he decides to become an apothecary. And his goal is to get enough money to open up his apothecary shop. And he's going to make money doing that. And he's just gonna kind of chill and become a pillar of the local community, which once again, very wholesome. So he succeeds in doing that by helping out a friend of his by saving his child's life. He does a whole bunch of other nice things. There's an interesting kind of contrast in this between him and like the Lifetime adventurers, because the Lifetime adventurers are entirely obsessed with gaining glory by killing people, and they have to lead this really extravagant life where everybody's always worshiping them and stuff like that. And they just can't understand that his ambitions in life really aren't any higher than being a successful small town merchant and eventually getting married and having a family. And this kind of brings me to an archetype I really like, who I kind of call the Delta male protagonist. Basically, it's a protagonist in an anime who may not be the flashiest guy. I mean, Red's really good looking, but may not necessarily be the best looking guy. But he wins over the main girl and he's successful largely just because he's competent, hardworking, and just a really good dude in general. And some other examples of this: Toradora, the main character's like that. Real Girl is like that. And You Never Thought There Was a Girl Online is like that. Just a really solid person who you'd love to be like a buddy of yours or your uncle or your father. Just the kind of the people who society is dependent upon. It's just something that I always really like. So he's very much kind of that character. Now, part of the way through in the first episode or two, we're introduced to Rit, who is the princess of another kingdom that she left to escape a succession crisis, because I think they want to put her on the throne over her. I forget if it's her brother or sister, but she doesn't want to overthrow her other person, her sibling, because she loves them and she never really had any desire to rule. So her and Red have a bit of history. They traveled together for a while. Um, and when they were traveling together, she fell in love with him basically just because he's such a great dude. And she happens to run into him, and then she's just like, you know what? This is a nice place. He's got a good thing, or he'll soon have a good thing going with his apothecary. I've met like this really nice dude. I'm just gonna settle down with him. We're gonna get married. We're gonna have like 20 kids, and things are just gonna be great. They don't get married within the season, but it's implied. I think at one point someone calls, I forget if they call him her fiance, or she calls, or they call her his fiance, and they don't object to it. So basically, she's just like, "Look, I'm gonna move in with you. I'm gonna be your first employee, and I'm just gonna work here as long as you'll want me to. I like the idea of settling down and not being an adventurer anymore." So then we got a series of episodes, which is Brit and Red kind of being shy, getting closer together. They come up with all kinds of like slice of life stuff. Like first, they come up with making nutrient potions and mixing them with cookies. So you have these good tasting potions that normally are kind of dangerous. They come up with, I think it's like a new painkiller or something, some new healing potions. He comes up with some herbs that can be used in a sauna and a bunch of other stuff. So they actually become pretty successful. And like I said, it's just wholesome. It's just kind of them hanging out. People keep coming and asking Rit or Red to go back, and they're like, "Look, we're just happy chilling here. We're both young, good looking, and in love. We're gonna have our 20 kids and engage in some eugenics. And I hope they do have 20 kids and engage in some positive eugenics. But yeah, so that's all happening. And meanwhile, the heroes' party is just kind of falling apart. Ares, the guy who kicked him out, just becomes more and more paranoid and disheveled as time goes on. His sister has the hero's blessing, which makes her um, have absurd powers, but at the same time, it dulls all sensations. Like she's not able to sleep, she's not able to taste food or really eat even, because that's not necessary and that's a weakness and stuff like that. So eventually she runs into them and she decides she's going to retire from being a hero as well and go live with them and work at the apothecary. And like I said, it's just a very nice, happy, wholesome show. And you know what? Sometimes that's all you need. You don't need something that's like the meaning. Well, I guess it kind of is the meaning of life when you really get down to it. But just a really fun show. I definitely would recommend it if that's your thing. Like I said, it's probably not the greatest thing ever. It probably is kind of schlock in a lot of ways, but hey, it's schlock that I like. So there you go.